Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
Welcome to the program. Penny Gaylor from the Greater Wellington Regional Council.
Morning.
Good morning to you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, that's good.
I'm in the middle of a big block building in Wellington, so hopefully you can hear me fine.
I can hear you fine.
Coming in there? Yeah?
No, we're fine. We're fine. We're absolutely fine. And
Beaming up.
You're beaming up, indeed.
Beaming up to Kapiti.
Yes, it's to the much higher, at least the more northerly elevations here. But, Penny, I understand that the AG's had a look over the Wellington Regional Council, the Auditor General, and I imagine this has produced a report on how you're going.
Oh, no, what we've got is, today's, we don't have a formal council meeting, we've got a workshop. And
oh,
the
I see.
section I've just stepped out of is the Auditor General's office. Just come around to doing a briefing, particularly useful for those who are entirely new around our council table, for them to find out what the audit office does. We're about the 20th council they've been to since the election. They're just doing the tiki tour around the country. Which I have to say, I've been in local government now for 12 years. Prior to that, I was in the public sector and the not-for-profit sector. But it was, really interesting to me because there's certainly things that I hadn't thought about that they do. Like a lot of organisations, the role they have is evolving. A reminder from them that they're independent from government. They might well get paid by government, but they are seen and should be seen to be independent because they're there to hold government and local government to account on behalf of the community. So there's some really good kind of conversation and questions we've been having with them. They've been talking about, the conflict of interest is always... So conflict of interest is always something that's quite a dilemma, and something that should always be talked about. And around our table, various stages talk about it, which is good because then all of a sudden something can pop up, and it's really good to make sure that you can sort of rely on people's personal judgment to say, well, hand up. I may have a conflict of interest here. We had some interesting discussion around I'm just waving them goodbye. They were going, Bye. I'm doing my regular radio interview with Beach FM up in the Kapiti coast, live on air right now, saying goodbye, and thank you very much for coming. It was a great session. So, they're just off, John. They're not taking over the business or anything, sending in a commissioner. That's good stuff. So no, it was really informative. We kind of had a good hour session with them.
The conflict of interest thing, Penny, is really interesting because, let's face it, we live in small communities. Wellington is a small community. Everyone seems to know everyone. And most of us are very busy, which means we get involved in a whole lot of activities. And, for the very best of reasons, you may be involved in a conflict of interest. And therefore, that's an important thing. I must say, by the way, I think the Auditor General do a great job. Mike Heine has got my email. So I get reports from the Auditor General, which I think are very fair, generally speaking, and very well researched. So it's a wonderful source of information and a great thing for interested voters to be involved in, I think.
And because it's about giving the voters the assurance that they are there watching us all the time. Not when a problem bubbles up in the media or something like that at some council. Every council around this country, as it does for every government department, has to provide all their annual reports, or their annual plans, or the annual reports, or our long-term plans, all go through the Auditor General's office and get the big tick, or get the comes back, must work on this before we sign it off. Now, they don't sign it off unless you get it 100% right, and then you might have to redo something and all that sort of thing. So there's always having been through long-term plans at KCDC when I was on there and here as well, that, it's always a very kind of a critical date that you work to a particular point where your plan or your report must be at the Auditor General's office, and then you're kind of like, there's no movement on there. And then, kind of a quick turnaround. So what was interesting, I felt was interesting, the last question I kind of pitched, because something that I have an issue about is that So the role of is for them to audit our long-term plans. And of course, in the Kapiti Coast, always have really good participation for our local district council, and of course here at Regional Council we do the long-term plan as well. But the auditing process is actually about auditing that we have done all the steps to write it, to consult on it, to hear from submitters, and then to apply any changes that we wish to apply, and then we land with a long-term plan. So they measure us by saying, you followed the steps that are required in the legislation.
You tick the boxes.
You've ticked the boxes. I said, for me, what's lacking here is that actually nobody's auditing us to say, did you deliver what you committed to? Did you deliver good outcomes from your long-term plan, like you intended to? So, and they were nodding and going, absolutely, that is something that they are seeing as the gap. And, kind of putting their mind to thinking, how do you correct that? Because, they said it seems to be overweighted on the focus of ticking all those boxes, as opposed to then looking and measuring, did your community have better outcomes? Because of all the things we took great care to put into our long-term plan. So I'm really pleased. I asked the question, really pleased that they had that answer. One of the things they said they're looking at is potentially just reduce the amount of essentially what might be some kind of extra burden for councils at that kind of front-end loading of just all the extra stuff that goes in behind these long-term plans, so that I guess freeing them up to then go in and be able to kind of look at the outcomes for the community, not producing a really interesting, beautiful document that says lovely things is not the result for the community.
Precisely. So not so much an audit of the process as it is now, but an audit of what the process produces.
Yes, that's what I'd like to see. That's what would kind of make me go, that's why I still love my job, is because I'm seeing that we are doing things that actually make a difference in our community. And, we can, the whole point of them being independent is surely that we might look at it ourselves as councillors and go, well, I'm pretty sure, I'm feeling good, we've built a beautiful new pool, or da-da-da-da. Did we actually deliver, what the community needed and what made things better in our community, and for that independent assessment of that.
Penny, I wonder if we can put on your Environmental Committee chair hat now and talk about a couple of environmental issues. One of them, well, I suppose for many people they may think of it as small but potentially large. Algae. We're getting warmer and we have lots of water areas. Many of them are quite still and they are vulnerable to this algae thing, which people should not take lightly.
Yeah, so we've already put out a warning in the last couple of days from Regional Council that over in the Wairarapa, the Waipohu River is already got toxic algae. So algae's not so bad. It's the toxic algae that is the stuff that makes humans sick, especially children are very vulnerable, and can potentially kill our animals, that, particularly your dogs, if you're walking your dogs, in areas where there's toxic algae. So, there is certainly that difference. And we know, remember last summer we had, very, new to us having toxic algae in the Waikanae River and the Otaki River. Certainly they hadn't even had anything on record about as to when they last had it in the Otaki River. And we had our scientists from Regional Council up looking at it, and, they go and test it and everything, and it was, as far as they're concerned, directly a result of changing weather patterns as a result of climate change. And, the thing to get rid of toxic algae is a bit of rain that flushes the rivers through. So we've had a little bit of sightings in Waikanae River probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We've had a lot of rain all of a sudden, and we kind of, the good thing about having the rain. But we're only just heading into the summer. And, of course, last January and February is when it, was the real issue for us up on the Kapiti Coast. So reminding people to be when you're users of those river corridors, keep an eye out for us. We would really appreciate you being our extra eyes. We have a partnership with KCDC helping us doing the testing. But for those who can help us in the community, just to keep an eye on things, if you see something, let us know and we'll go check it out for you.
Now, the last thing, and this is ridiculous, leaving something as big as this to the end. Oh. You mentioned climate change. There was another report that was mentioned or has been released from the council that show that the region's emissions are growing. And we've got all of these plans nationally, 2050. Of course, the KCDC is talking about 2025 to be carbon neutral. And we've got all of these plans running around the place. I'm sure you're reading lots and lots and lots of reports in your current position. Do you think that these plans can actually be delivered on?
Well, I think that's what I was just going back to what we're talking about, the Auditor General's Office. So much of our assessment goes into, we've got good plans. Did we go through the right process of getting plans? I'm one of the keen to get on with it and actually get onto the things that the plans tell us we ought to be doing, that we said we ought to be doing, and let's put them in the plan. So I think that's the exciting thing about this next 3 years with this new council. I get the vibe around the table that it's people who of the view that, well, why are we waiting? We've got plenty of strategies and plans, and let's crack into it.
That report shows a 12% increase in transport-generated emissions in the last 5 years. 12%. Admittedly, there are more people in Wellington now. Not 12%, though. It appears that we're going in the wrong direction, doesn't it? I know, and well, if you build more motorways, more expressways, guess what's going to happen? It gets easier to jump in a car, but that's why it's so encouraging how good people in Kapiti Coast are at using our public transport. But that's why we also need to keep looking at, and that's part of my job, is to keep encouraging us here and through into government, is to keep investing in more public transport for our community, because we show that if you provide it, if you build it, we will come all right. Does that include Otaki, by the way?
Of course. Top of the list.
Penny Gaylor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
All the best to you. There we are, Penny Gaylor.
106.3 Beach FM.